Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome. As you're coming in, I would love for you to just drop in the chat the organization that you're with, and if you're not with the organization, where you're chiming in from. And we'll just give a few minutes for everyone to join, and then we will get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome. For those who are just coming in, we're just going to give a few minutes and then we'll get started. As you're coming in, if you can just drop the organization that you are joining from, or if it's not an organization, just the area that you are joining from, would be wonderful. Franciscan Center of Hope, wonderful. Ah, okay, I see you, Nick. That's interesting. Somehow it's, oh, I understand. Okay, we sent you that link. All right, see you there. Yvette, welcome. IU School of Medicine. Welcome, Dana. Hello, Vicky. So we have Step Up here, a Coburn Place volunteer from Indy. Robert Clark, Clark and Clark. Hello. That is my husband. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started because we have a lot to cover. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for tuning into Coburn Conversations. I am Tracy Clark. I'm the Senior Director of Mission Impact at Coburn Place. And for those who don't know what Coburn Place is, we offer compassionate care and safe housing choices to survivors of domestic violence and their families. If you all check out in the chat, there was a pre-survey link that we sent out. And I'll have Haley just drop that in the chat again really quickly. Courtney, if you could go ahead and share your screen as well, because it looks like it's locked on Haley's screen there. That way we have something to focus on there. You can go ahead and share your PowerPoint before we do an intro. But if you all can find that link and click that link to the pre-survey, that would be really beneficial. That helps us to know how impactful these meetings are and how impactful the conversation is. I'm really excited to introduce today's speaker, and I'll make sure you all can find that link. And Haley has dropped it before I proceed. All right. Courtney Hunt is the co-founder and CEO of Ambassador of Hope, an organization dedicated to empowering parents and members of the community to reduce and minimize adverse childhood experiences by creating a network of support within the community. Today, Courtney will walk us through the exploration of the long-term effects on individuals and families who have experienced domestic violence. Together, we will examine how abuse can shape behaviors, relationships, and emotional well-being that is often passed from one generation to the next. With that, I'll go ahead and pass it on over to Courtney. She has asked that you all save your questions to the end. She is going to have a Q&A portion at the end of this as well. Go ahead and take it on over, Courtney.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Welcome, everybody, and good afternoon. I think it's officially afternoon. Like Tracy stated, that our topic for today is breaking the cycle of violence. So just want to give a little bit more insight about Ambassadors of Hope. HOPE is an acronym standing for Help Others Parent Effectively. We were established in 2017 by providing a free parenting education program for the community to prevent child abuse and neglect. Since then, we have extended our services to also include a resource parent support group for foster parents. We also do some case management services for Indianapolis Public School System for families who are experiencing homelessness as part of the McKinney-Vento program. And we also do My New Baby is a peer-led teen support group. So we have trained a group of teenagers on how to be support group leaders, and they lead sessions for their peers. All of our programming is based on the evidence-based curriculum, Nurturing Parenting. And so we do like participation. So there will definitely be opportunities through this presentation for you guys to engage via chat. This is just a little bit more about me. I figure you guys may want to know who is this lady and what is she about. And so again, I am the CEO and co-founder of Ambassadors of Hope. I'm a proud mother of two beautiful daughters, and then I also am a proud auntie of two wonderful nephews. And so that's my family down in the corner. And honestly, I enjoy being an aunt more. That's why they're on here twice compared to my children. Those are my homies right there, my babies. I love Mickey Mouse, and I love Diet Coke. So if you ever want to send me a gift, something with Mickey on it, or a case of Diet Coke, you will make my day. My background is primarily in child welfare. When I started Ambassadors of Hope, I did it because I wanted to create an agency that truly supported families in ways systems often doesn't. I was frequently asked to represent families in a way that I wasn't always comfortable with, and so I really wanted to be a more work alongside people versus in a more of a punitive way that I found like working with DCS had put me in a position to do. One of my favorite quotes is here from Mr. Frederick Douglass. It's easier to build strong children than repair a broken man. And I just really believe in this because it inspires the work that I do every day. And I think it's a really great segue into our topic today, right? So here's our objectives. One, we're going to define what generational trauma is. You'll have an opportunity to understand what generational trauma is and how trauma experiences can impact individuals, families, and communities across multiple generations. We're going to explore how trauma is passed down. You'll explore the psychological, behavior, environmental ways in which generational trauma is transmitted through families and communities. We're going to recognize signs and effects, so you will be able to identify common emotional, rational, and behavior patterns that may indicate the presence of generational trauma in individuals and in families. And lastly, we want to discuss some strategies for healing. So you guys will learn practical approaches for breaking cycles of trauma, focusing on personal healing, strengthening family connections, and building supportive trauma informed communities. So, just to kick us off, what is generational trauma, right? So, first, what is trauma? Trauma is a deeply distressing experience that overwhelms one's ability to cope. So, it can be something as simple as a car accident, right? That you may have walked away with a couple of bumps and bruises with, or it could be something more severe like experiencing the death in the family. There's different forms of trauma. The frequency of trauma, the duration of trauma varies from situation and individual, but it's very common. It's estimated about 70% of the population has experienced some form of trauma. And when you really start breaking down what trauma is, you start to realize like we all have experienced some shape, form, or trauma in our lives. Again, the frequency and the duration of it varies from some level to level, but we all can relate in some level. We've had a distressing event happening to us. So, what generational trauma is, or intergenerational trauma, or also known as transgenerational trauma, is the psychological and emotional wounds that are passed down from one generation to the next. This occurs when the traumatic experience of the parent is adversely affecting their children, even if the children didn't experience the actual car accident event. So let's go back to our example of a car accident. So maybe I experienced the car accident and my kids were not present in the vehicle with me, right? But was as a result of me experiencing the car accident that I had walked away with a couple of bumps and bruises for. Maybe I have a fear of driving now. And as a result, my kids see that I kind of get panicked when anytime I have to get behind the wheel, or I have anxiety attacks, or avoid driving or whatever. And my children, being around in that environment of me having my response to my traumatic event, are going to absorb those emotions and those feelings. And so oftentimes this happens again is because the children observe and adapt the maladaptive coping mechanisms. Sometimes these can really be harmful things such as substance abuse, violence, or emotional withdrawal. And this creates a cycle of trauma that continues on and on and on in the family. And this can happen in two ways. One, it can be collective trauma, so such things as war, genocide, slavery, colonization, systematic oppression, and things of that nature. Or it can also be something that happens within the family, so family trauma, such as abuse, neglect, domestic violence, addiction, or poverty. In the chat, I wanted you guys to put in there. Does anybody have any other examples of some large scale traumas or historical traumas that people might have experienced that might be linked down and passed down to family from family member to family member? So, how is this passed down, right? Well, there's three main ways in which this happens. The first way is through psychological or the family dynamics, the learned behaviors that we experience. So, again, children will observe and internalize how parents cope with stress and pain. And when parents have unresolved trauma, it can lead to emotional detachment, overprotection, or harsh discipline. These learned behaviors perpetuate the trauma cycle across generations. So, again, an example is a child senses a parent's constant fear or insecurity, may internalize that fear as their own. And then, as an adult, they may avoid risks, struggle with confidence, or repeat similar emotional patterns with their own children. I know my mother, I don't know what happened to her in her past life. She hates cats for whatever reason. If she sees a cat, she's just like, ugh, a cat. And they were all over her neighborhood, just stray cats, a whole lot of them. And she'll just sit in the window and she'll watch them. She even tried to put some things out there for them to eat that would unalive them. Don't judge. But things of that nature. And then one day I saw a cat and I found myself going, ugh, a cat. And I'm like, well, where did that come from? I never had an issue with cats, but being around my mother and her having experienced and expressing her emotions about not liking cats, I found myself picking up on it. And then I found my daughter kind of being like, ugh, cat. And I'm like, where did that come from? You have not had a bad experience with a cat at all. You've just been around your granny and her mean butt for that long period of time. And now you're kind of picking up on those behaviors. And so that's kind of like that thing. You're in that environment, you're continuously hearing these things, and you're kind of learning indirectly because you're observing your parent about what that looks like, and you're developing a fear. Then it's also passed down the second way through sociological and environmental and cultural influences. So, again, this could be systematic injustice, poverty, and community violence that collective trauma has happened to. So families and communities pass down that fear, that distrust, and that hypervigilance as a survival response. Cultural narratives can reinforce these patterns over time, again and again, because it's not just now your family that has this belief, but it's a lot of more people in your everyday. So people you're going to school with, people you go to church with, your neighbors, you're all kind of collectively sharing this same point of view or this similar fear. So imagine that a family is living in a neighborhood where there has been a long history of discrimination or community violence. For generations, families in this community have experienced unfair treatment, limited opportunities, and a lack of safety or trust in institutions such as school, law enforcement, or healthcare. Because of these experiences, parents teach their children important survival lessons. For example, don't trust authority figures or always stay alert, right? Pay attention to your surroundings, or even keep your head down. Don't draw attention to yourself. These messages are passed down with good intention, right? Because they want to protect that individual. But what they also do is instill a deep sense of fear and, again, vigilance and mistrust that shapes how the next generation sees the world. And so over time, this collective experience of systematic injustice and chronic stress creates a pattern of hypervigilance, anxiety, and guardedness that becomes part of the community's shared identity. And even if the conditions improve, those survival responses can persist for decades upon decades. Drop it in the chat if you have an example of this. And the third way is through biology, right? And so this is called epigenetics. And so, granted, it's not necessarily, my mother's afraid of cats. It's in her DNA now that I'm afraid of cats. It doesn't work exactly like that, but it does kind of change the markers in our DNA and how they are responding to things. So almost think of like going back to high school science class, evolution, right? There's certain qualities about us physically that made us be able to survive during that time a little bit better. So if you were taller or, had longer legs, you were able to run away from predators faster. And so as a result, if those are the people that are left that are surviving, then of course, when they reproduce, their genes is going to have that particular quality or characteristic that's going to happen. And the same thing happens when we have trauma. Trauma does stay in our body. It is stored. It does, and I didn't want to go too deep in the weeds with the science behind the trauma, but it does change the neural pathways in our brain and things of that nature. And so, because of that, like let's say I had a traumatic event that happened to me this time of year during fall. I may not even be next fall. I might not even be thinking about what I experienced during that time. But the fact that I see the leaves changing and the temperature dropping, or it's football season, my body will recall all these things like, oh my gosh, I know that this time last year, because of all these signals I'm seeing, something happened. And then all of a sudden, I may have some trauma responses. I may be a little bit edgier than normal. I may find myself unable to sleep or unable to eat or a little bit more jittery than normal, and I don't even know why. And then sometimes you got to go back and be like, oh, yeah, it was this time this year that whatever that traumatic event happened. So this does stay in our body, and it does get passed down. Those markers will get passed down to our future generations. And so I did have a brief video that can explain it a little bit better because I'm a human service worker. I ain't a scientist. I probably want some sound.
Not IT, not admins. You're in charge.
What's the earliest we know that neurodevelopment can be impacted?
Even preconception. Epigenetics comes in, right? The proteins and the chemical conformations that control the expression of genes can be modified in one generation, and that can be carried into the next generation. It's an experience-based change in functional capability. You have a grandparent that was significantly traumatized and or lived under conditions of unpredictability, starvation, near genocidal experiences, there will be a difference in the way your DNA will be expressed with regards to a stress response system and certain cascades of your metabolic. It's one of the great protective aspects of our species. Your brain and the rest of your body is always trying to sort of help you adapt to whatever the environmental circumstance. So you're trying to get head start. If you know that you're going to be born into an environment that's calorie depleted, you want to have a head start as an infant to metabolize in a certain way and store calories in a very efficient way, which means that you store fat very efficiently. Whereas if you have a calorie-rich environment in the previous three generations, you don't store fat the same way. In the first trimester, these core regulatory networks, the cells that are going to become those really important neurotransmitter networks in your brain, they're starting to develop and organize, and they're very sensitive to experience.
See, they did a much better job explaining it than I did, right? So now that we kind of understand what generational trauma is and how it's passed down, how do we even know that we are victims, we are experiencing generational trauma, right? And so here are several different signs that you can look out for within yourself or with somebody in your community to kind of recognize, hey, maybe something more is going on. Because again, generational trauma is not about you experiencing the direct trauma, but again, is being a child of someone who has experienced that a traumatic event, and those behaviors are adversely affecting your behavior. So the first one is kind of the obvious one that when we think about generational, right, is we're going to repeat those negative patterns of behavior. How many times have you seen somebody that struggles with substance abuse, and then you find out that one of their parents struggle with substance abuse, as well as their grandparents? And so it's a repeated pattern of behavior. And even though unintentionally they don't go in and wake up one morning and say, hey, I want to start struggling with substance abuse like dad, but more or less it's these learned behaviors that they're experiencing in the environment that they're growing up with, that they see that, hey, this is what my family uses to cope with uncomfortable feelings. Maybe this is what I should try out and I should start doing. A second one is a lack of boundaries. And this can go one or two ways, right? The first way is on the permissive side, where you just don't have any type of boundaries. You are just a people pleaser. You let people walk over you because you don't want to rock the boat, because you grew up in an environment where it was unstable and you didn't know what that looked like for you. And so you want to keep the peace. And so it's just easier for you to just say yes, even if it makes you feel uncomfortable. Or it can go on the other way, where you're so rigid and you're so tight, like, no, I'm not allowing this at all. No, it's my way or the highway, right? Because that's also a form of a trauma response, because there's been a point in your life where you didn't have control. And so now you want to hold on into the things that you can control as much as possible. Difficulty establishing relationships and trusting others, right? If somebody close to you has hurt you or harmed you, what makes you think somebody that isn't close to you isn't going to do the same? It's very hard to start establishing relationships and trusting people if those who are supposed to be there and protect you fail to do so. And that goes hand in hand with your parent child relationship. You have a poor relationship in that dynamic. And that could happen because of attachment styles. And so, not going too deep in the weeds with this because we only had an hour. But again, depending on what type of traumatic event that was experienced by the family member, the parent, right, they could have a couple of different attachment styles. One, they could be anxious. They just really are holding on real tight to you. They don't want you going anywhere. They're afraid of losing you. And so they're kind of clingy type is the best way to describe the anxious attachment style. Or they could be avoidant, like, oh, anytime I've gotten close to somebody, they have hurt me. So it's just easier for me to be alone, or I don't want to be bothered with anybody. Or the one we all really want to strive and get to is the secure. You grow up in a very healthy environment, you get your needs met physically and emotionally, and you're able to interact with other people in a safe and healthy way. And that's the best attachment style. And the last one is disorganized. And that is just really the combination of the anxious and the avoidant. In some situations, you don't want to be bothered at all and you keep people at a distance. But then when you finally get a relationship, you just hold on to it real tight. You're on that clinger status type of thing. And so when the parent is parenting that way, right, depending on that attachment style they have with their child, then the child is going to have relationships that mirrors the relationship that they have with their parents. So could you imagine having a romantic partner who just was distance? Hey, I don't want to get involved in all of that. You know, I can be committed to you, but emotionally, I kind of keep you at arm's length. Or the opposite, somebody who's very clingy and doesn't let you go out and explore other opportunities and do fun things, or is always afraid that you're going to leave them and things of that nature. So that really plays hand in hand with one another, the parent-child relationship and how the child is going to continue to have relationships moving forward. The next one is difficulty managing emotions. If you're in a family environment where they're not showing you how to properly manage emotions, who's going to teach you? Great, the schools do LCL in schools now, which is great and phenomenal, but the kids are only in school for how long? It really needs to be modeled in the home as well. And so, are we yelling and screaming? Are we throwing things when we're having uncomfortable emotions? Or are we a family that talks things out? We journal and things of that nature. Also, could be an issue if we don't even talk about them at all. You know what I mean? Oh, you shouldn't be angry about that. You're just a kid. That doesn't matter, or anything like that. When you're saying things like that to a child and not giving them space to express their emotions, you're really showing them that they have to suppress their emotions and they don't know what to do with that. The next one is increased need to care for others and keep secrets. And keeping secrets just creates an environment for trauma to continue and persist, right? And so they can find themselves kids can find themselves being in that caretaker role as a response to what's going on with the parent. So that can go one or two ways. Maybe mom is so busy, she's a single mom and she's working two jobs just to keep a roof and clothes on our back. And so she's barely home. So it's my responsibility to get little brother and sister onto the school bus or prepared for dinner or watch them after I get out of school because mom's too busy working and she really isn't there emotionally. She takes care of us physically, but our emotional needs are not being met. And so therefore I, as the older sibling, have to step up and watch out for the younger ones. Or maybe mom's coping mechanism is, hey, I've been through this traumatic experience as such as intimate partner violence, and it's just been so much and overwhelming, and I turn to alcohol to suppress all these negative feelings that are reminding me of this relationship and everything that I've been done to me. And so now I'm not taking care of the basic needs of the kids, and me as the older sibling has to step up and take care and make sure that my siblings are getting what they need. And so again, that can happen one or two ways, and that child is now put in this parent role of caring for younger siblings. And then as they grow up, they find themselves needing to be the caretaker in other relationships, sibling relationships, romantic relationships, friendships, and oftentimes these people get taken advantage of. The next one is feeling responsible for other people's feelings. Oh, it's my job to keep everybody happy, especially people who were raised in environments where there was a lot of tension and violence. Nobody wants to continue that. And so let me break the ice. You find oftentimes we'll find the funny one will be the one that usually has taken on that role and responsibilities to kind of just make sure everybody's happy, keep everybody safe. Maybe if I make dad laugh, he won't lash out at mom today. Or maybe if I make mom laugh or whatever, she won't remember what happened last night between her and dad. Another one is minimizing your own pain. And I think a lot of people who've been through hard things and experienced trauma do this. Oh, there's people out here that have it worse than me. Oh, it wasn't that bad. Yeah, you're right. There are some situations that are worse off than what you personally experienced. However, it doesn't mean that what you experienced didn't have an impact on you. And so when we sit up here and we operate in that mindset, then we're tending to ignore what has been going on with us. And we're having these other symptoms going on and we don't know why. And so if you acknowledge, hey, yeah, I went through some things, then you can start the healing process. And the last one is hypervigilance. This is just really kind of always being on alert. You never really feel safe. Even when everything's going good, you're just almost like waiting for that other shoe to drop. And so that's again because you never felt safe. You grew up in a chaotic environment. And so you always had to be prepared for what's next. And so things were good, right? If we look at the cycle of domestic violence, there's that honeymoon period, right? And so there's good times, but I also oftentimes experience once the good started happening, shortly after the bad was coming right behind it. And so you're kind of hardwired to always expect bad is always coming. So let's take a look at how this plays out in a scenario. So I got my little family right there. I need to give them a last name. I don't know what the family is, but so we're going to start with Miss Maria. So Miss Maria is our first generation. She grows up in a home where her father frequently beats her mother. From a young age, she learns that anger means danger and that staying quiet and obedient is the safest way to survive. Although Maria eventually leaves the home, she never processed the fear, pain, or confusion she experienced. The belief that she must keep the peace and avoid conflict stays with her well into adulthood. Our lovely lady Maria, she gives birth to Lisa, our second generation. As an adult, Lisa unconsciously repeats familiar patterns. She chooses a partner who is controlling and sometimes abusive, not because she wants to, but because the chaos and fear feels familiar. She struggles to set boundaries or believes she deserves respect. Her children growing up in this environment hear shouting, feel unsafe, and learn that love and fear coexist. Even without physical abuse, they absorb the tension and emotional instability around them. And now Lisa has become a lovely mother herself, and she is giving birth to Jordan and Maya, our third generation. As adults, Jordan and Maya show the deep, lingering effects of their inherited trauma. They may experience heightened anxiety and hypervigilance. They have difficulty trusting others and maintaining healthy relationships. Our good friend Maya, she overreacts when there's conflict because you ain't gonna treat me that way. It's her type of mentality versus Jordan, like, oh my gosh, this conflict, I can't deal with that. Because when I saw conflict growing up, too many things bad happen behind it. They both have low self esteem and they both have guilt about expressing their needs. Everybody is carrying the wounds from experiences they've never personally lived with that echo Maria and Lisa's pain. So I had a question that I wanted to put in the chat and kind of just pause for a second so we could have opportunity to see those. What emotional or coping behaviors did Maria, Lisa, and the children learn and repeat? And then how did these patterns affect their sense of safety and self-worth? And did somebody want to read some stuff out in the chat?
No problem. I think this was before your question, but Yvette said some kids seem too mature for their age. Could
Oh,
that
yeah.
be a defense mechanism? And if so, how can we help them reconnect with their sense of innocence and playfulness? And that was before. Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. There are some children that do. And yes, that is again a sign of generational trauma for sure, because they may have been put in that position of being the caretaker, or, sometimes you'll hear like, oh, mom and dad split up, and the son is like, well, you're the man of the house now. They get that role put upon them. That's very common. And what you can do is definitely, it's hard, right? If you're not the parent to put a child in a child's place and allow them to experience the freedom and the joy that comes with childhood, right? And because also too, that is it kind of gets ingrained in their identity of who they are. And so you're almost taking away a sense of that when you're taking away those responsibilities, because that is part of who they are and how they see themselves. So I don't know, from an outside point of view, we see this a lot. Again, I do a lot of work with foster parents. And so what I tell them is definitely the first step is, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, is safety. They need to know that their needs are going to be met and that they can rely on you and trust you to meet that need. So whatever environment you're encountering that kid is, if there's a way that you can make them feel safe and let them know you're able to meet a need, whatever that may be, in the school setting, as their counselor, as their mentor, I don't know how you know this child personally, that would be the best way, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to allow them to let go some of those responsibilities.
Absolutely. And we have a lot of people commenting in the chat. One is keep the peace,
Yeah.
avoidance.
Yes.
I'll get you before you get me.
Yes, yes,
Fear, the fix it
yeah.
mentality.
Mhm,
Doesn't feel okay until everyone else around them feels okay. And
mhm,
ironically, that's a cyclical thing.
mhm,
Because everyone else around you can tell. I've had people ask me, like, why children, my child
mhm.
asks, why do you get so anxious and frustrated when I'm upset? Like, they
Yes,
don't want you to be upset and frustrated. That's no longer a safe place for them to be frustrated and upset. If you are
mhm,
also now not calm either, it's hard for you to regulate them.
yes.
Self deception. It is
Mhm,
not as bad as it seems to others.
yeah, yeah. Good job, everybody. You guys nailed the what you say, hit the nail on its head right there. Yeah, you guys got all the examples. And again, remember, these are things that were unintentionally passed down. Do you think Maria told her, oh, get a husband just like that? No, because Maria left. If you look at our vignette, she did leave her situation or whatever. But they unintentionally passed down these behaviors, and then the kids will pick up on it, and it affects the way that they're parenting, and then it affects the way that the kids are going to have behaviors and interact with others. Great job. So we already did that. So I love this example because in pop culture, this lovely movie did a wonderful job of kind of explaining some generational trauma. Put in the chat if you ever seen Encanto, and if so, who's your favorite character? And so if you haven't seen Encanto, because maybe you don't have kids, but even though my kids are grown, I still watch cartoons. The music in this one was great. But basically, this movie is about the Madrigal family, and we have Abuela over here. She's the lovely lady holding the candle. And Abuela's trauma that she experienced is after she gave birth to her triplets, she witnessed her husband being murdered. And once that happened, they received this miracle and gift that protected her and the children. That's what got them to safety. And it's this magical house. And this candle holds some of the powers, the magical powers. And so now she has these three children. And I just realized what was in the corner. Okay, sorry. I got distracted with the picture. But anyway, she has these three children who get gifts. And then when they have children, their children have gifts. So now Abuela has her children have magical powers as well as her grandchildren have magical powers. But because of what Abuela experienced of the death of her significant other, she really tries to hold on to this perfectionism and really wants the family to hold on to their gifts. But what she's causing for the family is more trauma and burden for them. And so some of the characters is Luisa. She's the one over here with the donkey on her shoulder. And so her gift is strength. Right. And so she carries everybody's load, right? Not only physically, but emotionally. And so she ends up tying her self-worth to the ability to help others, which leads to anxiety and burnout. And so she has a cute little song that goes along with it. And I almost cried because I'm the oldest sister as well. So I get it. Then we have Isabella over here. She's the beautiful one, right? She's the golden child. She has to maintain perfection. Well, she's hiding this fear. What about all those imperfections? What if I fail, right? And so this is leading to her having resentment towards unrealistic expectations. And there's a little subplot about what is expected of her from Abuela that she really doesn't want, while another family member does want this. And because of that, I have to maintain this perfect image. She feels like she's obligated to do it and rob her cousin of an opportunity that may make her happy. Peppa's over here in the back and she's kind of wet. You can't really see it that well. She controls the weather with her emotions. So if Peppa's happy, it's sunny outside, but can you imagine if Peppa's upset? What does that look like? So what happens with her, she has to suppress her emotions because if she gets upset or angry, it's going to lead to some type of weather catastrophe and everything. So everybody just wants to keep her happy. But we all know we all don't stay happy all the time. Things happen that causes us uncomfortable emotions, and we need an opportunity to express those. And then Bruno, and that's what I was just noticed. I kept looking at that picture. He's back here in a corner. You can't see him all the way. He's the scapegoat, right? His gift was the gift of foresight. So he could almost predict the future. But because he was giving some news that he gave wasn't always the best, it wasn't always the happiest, and it would come true, he was rejected by the family. And as a result, he went into hiding. And so there's a cute song, They Don't Talk About Bruno, right? And so that's why he's kind of off in that corner. I don't know if you see my cursor, hiding right in here, kind of exiled from the family. And so his trauma response was avoidance. And then we got Maribel. She's our beautiful one right here, the biggest one, front and center. And so she's our cycle breaker. Unlike everybody else in her family, she wasn't born with the gift, but she does have the gift of insight. And she could kind of see how everybody in her family is their pain and the challenges that they're experiencing. And she wants to do something to fix it because of all the distress that's going on with people trying to please Abuela and not cause her any pain and kind of protect her from experiencing her or reminding her of her trauma. They're losing their powers. And she's the one that's realizing that this is why this is going on. So she's the one that kind of saves the family by helping everybody. So again, it's just a really great example of about generational trauma. And if you yourself have experienced generational trauma and you're parenting, you find yourself in a parenting role and you're ready to break that cycle, this is a great way to do that by watching this movie with the children and having that conversation about that is a good way to open up conversation. So how can we become more like Mirabelle, cycle breakers? Well, one is going to start with awareness. The first step towards healing is awareness. We can't heal what we don't acknowledge. So we want to understand that certain behaviors or emotional reactions may be trauma responses and not personality flaws or characteristics. So hyper independence, society may praise you all the time. Oh girl, you do everything on your own. I'm surprised. Look at you, how you manage everything. Oh yeah, girl, I just got like that. No, in reality, that's a trauma response. You had a time in your life where you couldn't rely on anybody, so you don't feel comfortable asking for help. So kind of paying attention to some of those things within yourself. Why are you doing what you're doing? And then recognizing patterns such as avoidance, emotional shutdown, or hypervigilance helps individuals stop the self-blame and begin healing with compassion. So, on an individual level, reflect on family patterns of coping and communication. Hey, it's so great when other people, I think Tracy was talking about that, with her kids, but even coworkers, sometimes people be like, hey, do you notice you always make excuses for somebody when they make a mistake? Or you notice you always apologize when you really didn't do anything wrong. So pay attention to what people are saying and they're observing about you, and maybe take a few minutes to reflect about that. Like, why do I do that? And go back into your childhood. You may realize, like, oh, I remember my mom used to do that. Or, oh, when this was going on in the home, this is what made me feel safe in that moment. Maybe that isn't the best way to move forward in adulthood. Journaling or even seeking therapy can help identify triggers and emotional responses. So sometimes we're able to do it for ourselves, but we're not all superheroes. We don't know all of that, but doing some journaling will help you identify those patterns, writing down your feelings, and you can able to pick out like, hey, every time this happens, I have this type of response behind it, or even a professional could help you recognize and pick out those patterns for you. And then practice mindfulness or self observation without judgment. And I think a lot of times we think we're stupid or we're bad people or we should be doing something better, but give yourself some grace if you experience trauma because healing is not linear and it takes some time to get to a place that you really want to be. On a family level, engage in open conversation about family history and emotions. Again, we don't want to keep secrets because secrets cultivates an environment where trauma can thrive. So let's talk about it. Don't tell the kids, oh, that happened a long time ago. Don't worry about it. Or he's no longer here. We're not going to talk about him. Allow them to talk about it. Allow that space that they can have that emotions. Sometimes kids don't even really know how to put words to what they're feeling. Heck, even us as adults, we don't always know how to put words to how we're feeling. Try some things like art therapy or dancing or making up a song to express whatever emotions are coming out or showing up for people, and then have a conversation about it. Or like I said earlier, watch a cute little movie and talk about some things. You ain't gonna fix it all in one night, but have that environment that people feel safe in sharing and connecting with whatever feelings that they're experiencing. And then validate each other. It's okay, whatever it is. They may miss somebody. They may be very angry at somebody who's no longer around. They may feel all of the feels about them. I love them, but I don't like them. You know what I mean? Whatever they're feeling, it is okay. So don't shame your children for whatever feelings they're having and don't minimize them. And then on a community level, so promote education about trauma and resilience through workshops and faith-based communities and community centers. So thank you, Coburn, for hosting these conversations because you guys are doing the work. And also, don't always just focus on the bad. We don't always want to hear about the negative parts of trauma and all of those things, but share the stories of recovery, right? So that can inspire other people to let them know that, hey, there is hope and healing for me. And then that reduces the stigma around it. And people aren't afraid to reach out for help. So once you're aware that you're kind of somebody who is suffering from generational trauma, the next step is to have safety and support. And when we're talking about safety, we're not only talking about emotional safety, but physical safety, but we're also talking about emotional safety, right? Those are just as equally important. And until somebody feels safe, they're not really ready to move up into the higher level of being. And so if you really want to change your behaviors and patterns and things, we first have to establish some type of safety. And I think I was talking about that early. So individual level, again, seek supportive relationships or professional help when needed. You know, sometimes mom may not be the best person for you to go to because mom had her traumatic experience and she's not ready to start her healing journey. That's okay. And talking to her may traumatize you. So maybe mom isn't, but hey, you got a really great friend out there that listens to you and able to be a shoulder for you to cry on. Go to that person. Go to your church. Go to get you a therapist, whoever. Find those people who are there and want to walk alongside you during your healing journey. And then practice self-care routines. I know it's so hard. It's easier said than done to actually implement those things, but make sure you get enough sleep and nutrition. I know we all seen those commercials. You're not yourself until you have your Snicker, right? So, you know, taking care of those physiological needs really changes your mood and makes you be able to deal with more stress that comes your way. So make sure you're doing those things and practicing those things and making them a priority in your routine. On a family level, create home environments where family members feel safe expressing their feelings. And I think I talked about that earlier in themselves. And then establish predictable routines that foster trust and security. And I think that one is so imperative because when kids know what is expected, they will thrive better. That is a way to ensure that safety is coming about. And oftentimes, again, when you grow up in a home full of violence, you don't know what to expect. And so kind of letting them know, like, hey, every night at 6 o'clock, we're going to have dinner. It may not always be 6, but you know, at some point, we're always going to have dinner. Or, you know, we always get up at this time or whatever, because then they know what to expect and they know what's predictable, and it takes away a lot of that anxiety behind that. And on a community level, support organizations that provide safe housing, crisis interventions, and mental health care, and encourage trauma-informed policies in school, workplaces, and child welfare systems. And this one is very, very, very important. I think, um, we need to stop looking at people like, what's wrong with you? You know, and really start looking at what happened to them. You know, again, don't take it personally because your coworker doesn't want to come out to lunch with you. You know what I mean? Or they don't want to participate in the Christmas party and stuff. You don't know what happened to them early on in life that's making them feel that way. So why don't you try a different approach and trying to engage them? Or little Jimmy's always getting expelled from school. You know, he just don't know how to sit still and cooperate. Well, what's going on in little Jimmy's home that maybe that needs to be looked at, and how can we support him through that? He's not bad. He's just experiencing some things that he just doesn't know how to cope with. And our last one is having trauma-informed parenting. So trauma-informed parenting teaches emotional attunement, understanding and responding to a child's emotional needs with empathy. This approach emphasizes safe, consistent discipline and helps children develop secure attachments. So remember, that's the best attachment style. That's the attachment style we're thriving for. So on an individual level, we want to practice self-regulation before responding to a child's behavior. I am a reform speaker. I'm proud of that. And the reason why I stopped spanking my children is because I realized I was hitting out of my own feelings because I was angry, not because I felt like this was going to be the best tool to correct behaviors. Because all I had to tell her was, you know, when you do this, that makes mommy very disappointed. And she corrected it. And I was like, oh, I don't have to put my hands on you to get you to do what I need you to do. Light bulb moment, right? And so again, that is just one of those things. So once you take care of your emotions, that lets you respond to your child in a more loving and empathetic way, and you're more likely to get the results that you're looking for. And then learn positive discipline techniques that teach rather than punish, right? And so there's a difference between discipline and punishment, because if you look at the word discipline, the Latin root behind it, it does mean to teach and guide. And as a parent, that should be our role. We shouldn't be treating them like jail prisoners or anything like that. They hadn't committed a crime or anything like that, so they don't need to be punished. They need to be corrected and guided. On a family level, model emotional expression and repair after conflict. And I think that is so true. Mom, dad, grandma, whoever is taking care of the children, express your emotions in a positive way. You know, don't cuss and throw items or whatever, because you're teaching your children that that's the way you deal with conflict. Show them like, hey, when mommy gets upset, she goes for a walk. You want to come on and walk with me? Or mommy likes to journal or listen to music, color, whatever your coping mechanism is, and share that with your child. And then if we're all human, we make mistakes and missteps during this process of parenting. They don't come with a handbook with it. apologize. Like, hey, you know what? Mommy got really upset and I shouldn't have said that. I'm so sorry. Do you forgive mommy? Because now you're teaching your kids that they don't have to accept negative behavior from other people. And people are capable of feeling remorse and want to repair relationships with them. And engage in family activities that build connection and trust. What does your family like to do? Bake cookies, go on walks, color, the children's museum, the zoo, watch movies, game night. There's just so many different fun and creative ways that you all can get together and really start having an opportunity to share in experiences that are not just negative, but also positive. And on a community level, offer parenting workshops and peer support groups. Hello, Ambassadors of Hope is here for you. We definitely got you covered, but there's so many other organizations out here that are doing that work as well. Get connected to those, offer those if you're not offering them in your space currently, and encourage school and agencies to partner with families using trauma-informed approaches. Because again, it's going to work best to heal the child if they're receiving it on all levels. They're receiving it at home, right? That trauma-informed care practices as well as school, right? Could you imagine that you're getting the same information in the two places you spend primarily most of your time? So, and just in closing, just want to remind us that together we have the power to break the cycle of generational trauma. So it's not just one person's responsibility. Now that you guys know a little bit more about it, how can you support those and walk alongside those in their healing journey? Because we can create futures built on healing, resilience, and hope for those who have experienced it. So now I'm ready for any questions. And I'm going to stop sharing so I can see people.
If you all could just drop any questions that you have in the chat, that would be wonderful, and we can spend a couple of time on questions. One question that I have, Courtney, is what have you seen in your practice? I know you gave a lot of examples of different things that work, and different things that would help, if you're someone that has been impacted by generational trauma, which it sounds like most of us are
Right?
in some type of way, whether positive or negative. What would you say are the things that you've seen that have worked the most or that have stood out as far as techniques and tactics when it comes to breaking those generational cycles?
I think for me, I think what I've seen the most is really when you personally are willing to do the work. And again, I think it really just goes back to being aware of what's going on. And I think again, society promotes certain coping mechanisms, like again, that hyper independence, that person that can be out here and do everything. And so that kind of feeds into your maladaptive behaviors, but you're not really paying attention to how that is affecting other areas of your life and your relationships and how that's going about it. So definitely, once you realize, hey, this may be something that was passed down to me unintentionally, right? And really just starting that healing process and that journey, because at the end of the day, the only person you can control is you. And that's just really is. You can't worry about mom and what she did. Like I said, she may be stuck in her process and where she's at. And that's okay. Do the work for you because, again, you don't want to pass those things down to your children. You want them to have a bigger and brighter future than you.
Absolutely. We have a couple of questions here. What are typical resources that schools have for kiddos? Simply counselors, or are there other resources?
Yeah, there definitely most schools do have a counselor or social worker there. There's some schools that partner with mental health agencies like Aspire that will come into the schools to do that. I'm also seeing that a lot more schools are part of their curriculum is social and emotional learning. So they have a class that can focus on some of those emotions that are available for those kids. And it's not uncommon for some schools, depending on what school district you are in, to have what's called a community coordinator, and their responsibility is to connect you to resources outside of the school.
Yes, I know McKinney-Vento is one that we've worked with in the past with students, and their goal is for you to have the same experience, even though you may be experiencing homelessness or trauma right now in this moment. Additionally, I've seen a lot of schools bring in pets, like
Yes.
emotional support dogs and things
Mm-hmm.
like that. They have one in my child's school, and I think that's wonderful. Just something that they can interact with while they may be sharing or going through something as well. Additionally, next question is, Oh, Rachel said, I'm really happy that we recorded this. This is a great tool for survivor staffs and partners. Absolutely. We will have this recording and have it as available. Additionally, as we're going through some more questions, I want you all to know that we will be doing more of these in 2026. So be on the lookout. We're going to be doing a couple more next year in this style. Miss Vicky, raise your hand. You're going to place a question, I believe in the chat as well. We'll go right ahead and
Um,
place it in.
can I don't know, can I do an audio? Can I just
We can hear
speak?
you.
Okay. No, I just like what she said about surrendering because I was gonna ask like what are some of the tools? I guess there has to be a surrender and like when people are stuck in their processes, because as I was saying, like I have a mother who's stuck in her process and then children where these things bleed down who are
Hmm.
adults stuck in each individual process of like what I can see.
Hmm.
And I'm, I've tried to change a lot of my behaviors and heal. And I think one of the things I caught myself within the last year or two is like, hey, look at me, I'm healed, I'm doing these things, and
Hmm.
found myself trying to prove and reprove myself, which is
Yeah.
actually a piece of trauma too.
Yeah.
Like I shifted out of, being, having unresolved issues. And I mean, we have all issues, but, um, unresolved hurt and shame and
Hmm.
like, kind of stepping out of that and thinking that if I heal in front of everyone, then everyone will catch on and we'll be great and we can
Yeah.
all thrive together because all they needed was to see me healed, but that's not it. Like,
Yeah.
and I had to I had to release and surrender and say that part of me trying to prove myself is just more trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Vicky. You're absolutely right. And again, only person you can control is yourself. And so it's hard, because you love your loved ones and you're like, yeah, come on with me. I'm in a better space. I want you to come along with it, but you really have to let them go through their own personal process. And it's great that you are doing the work so you are able to model for them like, hey, I was able to do it. There's hope for you as well.
Absolutely. That was a question I was going to ask is where is that awareness? The toughest thing is when you do see some challenges in someone and you're wanting them to see them so that that work can be done, but they just don't.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people want to bring those ones into that awareness with them because they're just wanting to help. Is there any tips or anything? I really know the answer to this already, but I want to hear something different, that there's any other ways to just kind of bring the community into awareness with you other than just allowing them, to get there on their own. And before you answer that,
Mhm.
in this final question, as we wrap up here, there is a post survey in the chat. So if you all can click on that post survey and fill it out, it would really be helpful and beneficial to us. It helps us to know if these are impactful and ways for us to increase the impactfulness and really just work on providing something that's going to help you all as community members in the future. So if you could take a couple of minutes to fill that out, that would be wonderful. And Courtney, I'll see if you have some secret ways that we can bring more people into awareness of this work.
I think what I stated earlier in my presentation is really having that opportunity to share stories. Because again, that trauma thrives in that dark place, right, of secrecy, and letting people that are survivors and healers and thrivers really get out here and show people like, and sometimes it takes somebody a little bit removed from the person, your family member, to kind of see that to really be fully inspired because you're just little sister or you just my daughter. She don't know what she's talking about or whatever, but when I can see an outsider coming through and being healed, they may get a little bit more inspired to start wanting to do the work for themselves.
Absolutely. And I would say, I know that Miss Vicky, I know you kind of mentioned you healing and you showing that journey and hoping for it to inspire others. Even if it doesn't inspire others, I feel like people doing their own work is the most inspirational thing that you can do. Is
Yeah.
seeing someone do that work, seeing them use the tools, seeing them use the language. That's the most inspirational work you can do. Thank you so much, Courtney. We
Thank you for having
appreciate you
me.
coming, sharing this
Yes.
information. I believe we got through all of the questions. Yes, everyone said excellent. Courtney, you are so knowledgeable and effective
Thank you guys.
presenter. So excited for this. Would love to share with the staff. Wonderful. Thank you for the information. Servicing as a high school social worker, our kiddos display behaviors learned through intergenerational trauma. Educating them to unlearn and teach alternative ways of dealing with their stressors versus releasing that anger and frustration with the partner is needed and necessary for their future development and future relationships. Thank you, Mrs. Hunt. Wonderful.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining and taking this time. We know that your time is valuable. We appreciate you all for coming and joining with us and taking this time with us. We hope to see you in more coming up in 2026. You'll get that information as well. And I hope you all have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.